there. I'll explain to you the ground rules in a minute or two. But if you have questions you want to raise, if you want to take a moment to do it now, or we'll have a little break at some point in time and you can bring them to me. But we are not going to accept questions from the floor this time. So it is important if you have them, and you need to either have your name or your lot number on the questions before I'll read them. Okay, with that, it's 10 o'clock, and I'm going to turn it over to our esteemed president, who has an announcement that has nothing to do with this.
Nice intro. Good morning. I apologize for having to read this to you, but I wanted to make sure I got it right. Yesterday, we were advised that some owners were planning on a legal action because they were unable to attend the homeowners' dinner. Their premise was that dues were being spent on supporting an event they couldn't attend. As we're all aware, ORA built this building, and if you feel the need to sue someone, sue them. They built this building knowing they could never hold all the owners at the same time. The HOA has inherited this problem and has been dealing with it as best we can. Rather than incurring the expense and embarrassment of a frivolous lawsuit where the owners are filing a suit against themselves, incidentally, we're going to present the owners who are here right now with several options. The first option is to issue new tickets for a dinner and a band and dancing, and the cost will be $15 per person. This charge will be used to offset the cost of renting a tent so that all the owners can attend the event. The cost of the tent that would go up in that parking lot is somewhere between $5,000 and $7,000, depending on the number of owners who will attend. The second option is to change the event to a cash bar and heavy hors d'oeuvres at no charge in this building. There will be stand-up tables like the two you saw coming in and a specific number of chairs inside. The third option is to cancel the event completely. If we go for either of the other two, the first option, the tickets will be available on February 11th to the 23rd. You may obtain them in the front office and reserve them via email, but they must be paid for by the close of business day on February 27th. This will allow enough time for the caterer and to order the appropriate size tent. We'll send an email to all the owners regarding this event and your decision. On a personal note, I can't express our disappointment on several levels. First, the way the information was received. This was not brought to us, but was given to another owner who called me to give me a heads up on condition of anonymity and being anonymous. I couldn't even say it. At the same time, the same situation with whoever called them. The second thing I want to comment on is the fact that we've descended to these depths of conduct. So I know people are going to have some comments on this, but I'd like to hold them off until afterwards. At the close of the meeting, actually we probably ought to do this right now, by show of hands, would you rather hold the event in a tent where we can all attend at a cost of $15 per person?
Can I ask a question?
Sure can.
Have we looked into the fire marshal allowing us to put some tables up just right under the eaves?
We couldn't put enough tables out there to make it operate. The problem is when you put them outside, you have to have a 20 square feet of area around that door for exit in case of an emergency. The problem is that this building, if you look at the wall over there, just above the fire extinguisher, where it said the maximum occupancy of this building is 750. That's standing and seated as you are now. When you put tables in, according to the fire marshal calculations that Cal talked with the people, it's 246. Last year we were in violation.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure can.
If we do the tent, then are we having tables in here and in the tent?
No, the tent will accommodate everybody. The only thing that will take place in here is the band will be in here because of the dance floor and frankly, dancing on asphalt, as clumsy as some of us are. I don't like asphalt burns. Okay, any other questions? I'm sorry to have to do this, but I don't see a way around it. The fact that we're suing ourselves just, it flabbergasts me. So, would you rather, okay, one more?
Before we used to have 200, 300 people in here, so why is it different now?
Because I don't want to go to jail.
Well, I'm just asking.
Yeah, and here's the thing, is if something, God forbid something should happen, and let's say someone pulls a fire alarm, we're all rushing to get out of here, and you get trampled on the way out, okay? There's literally, it's not just a fine, it's a criminal negligence, and Cal has already said the same thing. I don't want anything to do with it, and I don't blame him. I really don't. 246. So you know that we're not, 246, so you know we're not just standing around doing nothing. I've asked Cal to get an architect without spending a lot of money on this and find out what it would cost to extend this building to that direction to be able to hold probably 2 or 3 times what we can hold right now. I got to tell you, I'm thinking about $750. It's not cheap. Average building cost right now for this style of building, we found out, is $200 a foot. So you're looking at a lot of money. Okay?
Just one more question.
Okay, one more.
When you're talking about expanding, have they looked into, I know it doesn't look as nice, but like, I notice a lot of casinos, they have those hard, but they're like tents
Mhm.
for, you know, if we have that maybe expanded only to have there for bigger functions and stuff like that, would that really look tacky or?
Haven't, honestly, this happened last night, yesterday afternoon, and this is as far as we've gotten. Prior to that taking place, I talked to Cal about looking at the expansion. We haven't done anything else or made any other inroads to find out what we could and couldn't do. Okay? You all sound as shocked and as stunned as I was. And I don't blame you. So, in light of that, how many would, by show of hands, would you rather hold the event in a tent where we can all attend at a cost of $15 a person? Or would you rather have heavy hors d'oeuvres and cocktails at a pay bar over here?
So start over.
Right now, we're voting for having heavy hors d'oeuvres and a cash bar over here. Okay?
What does that mean, John, that we can have more people in here because it's standing room now?
Yeah, because you're not sitting at the problem when you have tables
Right.
is you have to have like 4 feet in between them, or depending on a table arrangement, it's 3 to 4 feet. Okay, when you do that, we don't have that much room, and as big as this building looks, you gotta remember, whoever's gonna serve dinner to us is gonna take up all that area where the serving tables are already at. This one's clobbered with all the chairs and everything else being stored, although we could move it all and get maybe 2 or 3 tables here, and you lose all the bar area. So by the time you get done, this building is not that big.
How many people then if we just have standing room? 750?
Probably close to that, at least 600.
It's still not going to accommodate everybody. If everybody-
Well, you know what? I don't think you're going to get everybody. I think this is just a case of neener, because I couldn't come. Okay? Sorry, but it's sad that it's done, and I got to look at it.
Do we have enough tables?
Yeah, that's what we have Abby Reds for. Yeah, we'll just rent what we need. Do we have enough tables? No. Will we rent them? It'll be like those at the door and some chairs around here. Go ahead.
I thought that the HOA was keeping track of a waiting list. Do we know how many people are actually on that waiting list?
47.
48.
48 now?
Yes, 48 people.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, in the past, I think why you're getting so much flack right now is in the past, it was always open to every homeowner.
All right.
And there wasn't a limit of 190 or whatever that number happened to be. So I think that's why you're having people getting upset, because that's not the norm.
Well, it's been the norm for the last 2 years. Unfortunately, the year we had the fire dancer in here, we were close to 280 or something. Somebody said almost 300. We were over the top. And that's my fault. But we're not going to do it again because I didn't realize how severe the penalties could be. It's another one of those things you get to spend a couple of weeks, months, and a lot of money in jail. So it's just not worth it. I don't know how serious the county is and the fire marshal is, but if something happens, I'll guarantee you they're serious. You hear stories about bars that have had people go in there and the doors open in, they can't get out, and people die. Well, we don't have that problem, but think of the penalty for that. I don't think the county looks at things a whole lot differently. One last question, we need to move on to this.
Is there an option of just keeping it the way it is, and those of us who did not get tickets, we snooze, we lose, and just have dinner?
Except for one thing, and I agree with that, except for one thing, this group is planning on suing if that happens.
I'll give them my 2 tickets.
If they can have mine. Go ahead.
John, if you pay 7,000,
Hey, hold on a second so we can hear him.
if you pay 7,000 for a tent, rent more tables, what's the difference if they sue us? What's the difference in price between the lawsuit and all the other?
That's a good point.
Is it about the same?
No, it's not
No.
necessary.
The other option is you want to leave it as it is. Let the dice roll. 'Cause they're gonna. Okay. So I think in the end, what we may end up doing, this is not very conclusive. I think what we're going to do is send out a survey and try and list this stuff so it makes some sense. I got to tell you, I don't want to engage any more lawsuits. And while I can't talk about the details, so you know, we're already involved in 2 homeowner lawsuits right now. Okay, so it's an ongoing problem, and I guess people haven't figured out, you're suing yourself, but, okay.
John,
Go ahead.
what we also have to look at is that if we vow for this time and get a tent, does this mean every other function?
Good.
I mean,
You could.
we've got to look at more than one function.
You're limited to one question.
Okay, we got to move on to this portion.
One thing, John, I'd say anybody who is against suing ourselves and thinks this is just ridiculous should stand up right now and let us show whoever is doing this that it's ridiculous. So if you're against the lawsuit, stand up.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for your support. The reason this has all come up is, so you know how this works. We have an insurance company that handles these sort of things, but it's a $10,000 deductible. So no matter what happens, it's coming out of our pocket. And it's just irritating that we have to go through this kind of stuff. Okay, I know there's people have more questions. If you just hang on to them, you can come and catch me afterwards. I'm not leaving, but we really need to allow these people the time that they so richly deserve, and as foolish as they are, to get into this kind of stuff. On the other hand, thank you.
You should please ignore the foolish comment. Mike, sit. After that awful news, and I'm glad everybody stood up in solidarity because, you know, I'm with Mary. I think that, you know, on any given day one can be sued, and you just have to say, I'm doing the right thing, and, you know, do it. Anyway, with that said, I'm Jerry McLeese. Those of you who don't know me, I'm going to be the moderator today on the first of 2 Meet the Candidates meetings. And just so you understand, this is a little bit different this year in that we have 2 two-year seats which are available. Those will be the top 2 vote getters as always. Because of my health issues, I've had to resign from the board effective the day of the election. And so the remaining term of my seat will be available as well, and that'll be the 1-year term, so that we keep in congruence with what we're supposed to do. So the 3rd vote getter, top vote getter, will get elected to the 1-year term. The top 2 vote getters will be elected to the 2-year terms. And that's in compliance with all of the laws and regulations that we can understand. We thought that that's probably the most fair thing to do. I've got some ground rules, and I've talked to all of the candidates about them. They're going to be introducing themselves in a moment, and each of them are going to be given the opportunity to speak for 4 minutes in an introduction. As I said earlier, we're only going to talk about questions in writing that I've received. If in the middle of the meeting you have questions, you can go back there and write them and have, sneak up here or something, or we can have more at the break. There will be a break. If the question is addressed to one person, that person will have the opportunity to answer it first, but anyone else of the panel will have a chance to also comment on that question by raising their hands. I've asked the panel to limit their responses to any one question to a minimum or maximum of 2 minutes, not a minimum. And even Joe promised that he would do that for me, which I appreciated. I'm not going to take mean-spirited or hateful questions, but I will err on the side of reading a question if it's not written improperly, even though it may be considered a pointed question. As you know, sometimes in the past we've had some issues with that, so I'm going to be as cautious as I possibly can. At the end of the program, each of the people will have a maximum of 4 minutes to make their final remarks, and then they've all agreed after the program that they will be available to visit with you all individually. I have been advised that golf starts at 1, so I'm not sure which of the members I'll lose about that time, but we're hoping to get this wound up about noon. I think that's about the time that everybody gets really antsy, and if there's no more questions, we can wind up earlier than that. But I'd like to start closing it down in preparation about 20 minutes to 12. So any questions? Only time you're going to answer a question. Yes, sir.
Assuming a question is not written pointedly or in some aggressive manner, are we to be assured that all questions will be addressed?
Yes, sir.
It won't be just tossed?
I will give you that assurance, my personal assurance. I will pick, these are the questions right here, okay, and I will pick them up and put them over there. But we do have to assume if it's, you know, if it's a real mean-spirited, hated thing, I won't do it, okay? That's fine. Okay, introductions. I had them draw their names as to who's going to go first, so I believe Mr. Pepino is first.
Hi. Richard, son. Okay. Are we on? Okay. My name is Joe Crispino. A lot of you may know me already. I've been very active in this particular resort for many years. I've been here for 8 years. That's when we started out here. And let me give you a little history of me. Okay. Number one, I have a BSEE degree from the University of Purdue and IIT, also a double degree, a master's degree from IIT. I have a master's degree, also an MBA from Stanford University. I've been involved with several companies. I'm not going to go through the details of all of this because I don't think we have enough time. I've worked for several multi-billion-dollar corporations, and I've reached the pinnacle in my career of a vice president of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. I headed up, I retired from, been in the telecommunications business for all my life. I retired from the Telesis Group, and I don't know whether you know what the Telesis Group was, but they were the parent company of Pacific Telephone Company. The part of it that I headed up was called Pactel Information Systems Division. Pactel Information Systems Division was a non-regulated part. In other words, it wasn't with the telephone company part of that division. We did about $300 million worth of business. I was responsible for the whole division. I had full P&L responsibility. So one of my backgrounds is that, number one, we are running a multi-million-dollar unit here. And I think my experience in running a multi-million-dollar unit is appropriate for this particular type of an operation. I've also been very active in a lot of things associated with this particular resort. I am now chairman of the golf committee, as a lot of you know. I've put together, I've been working with Anley in regard to redoing a lot of the tees around here. I think a lot of you have seen the tees. We're flattening them out and doing a better job of providing the tees around here. I'd like to introduce my wife, who's down here in the back here someplace, Marion. She is the there she is right there. She has been for 2 years the co-chairman of the activities committee. 4 years, well, not co-chairman for 4 years. And I hope you all, the dinners and the appropriate things that she's been involved with, I hope you all had a good time here. My activities with the golf committee has been for about 4 years also with the golf committee. I have some ideas in regard to what I would like to do if I'm elected here. But one of the most important things that I'd like to get across to you is this. If I'm elected here, I am elected to represent you, not to dictate to you. And I think that's a very important thing. We represent you. In order to represent you, we have to get to know you. We have to get to know what you want and how you want it. One of the things that I did a while back was that I saw the fact that we talked about this Title 25, and some of you may have been at the presentations that the board made on Title 25 and that I made. The board made a fine PowerPoint presentation on it. I followed it with a PowerPoint presentation. I did not think it was appropriate to have references, all the references that were in our architectural guidelines to Title 25. Because I said, number one, I studied it for a very long period of time. I called Sacramento. I talked to the people in Sacramento about Title 25. And I also looked into all of the aspects of it, not only Title 25, but all the references in Title 25 that reference other things, other codes and so on within Title 25. It turned out to be a document like this if you looked at all the references and everything. 4 minutes already? Okay. Well, okay, that's it. Thank you very much. Okay. I just hope that you will vote for me. I've been active in this resort. Even if I am not elected in here, I will still remain active in this resort. And because I like it here. I love it here. I love the people here. And I want to have a good time. I don't know about anybody else, but I want to have a good time. Okay?
Really goes by awfully fast. My name's Scott Richcover. I live on lot 115. And we're rather new here. My wife and I, my wife Robin over here, we moved here about a year and a half ago. And we absolutely love it. But just to give you a little background about myself, I've really had 3 careers in my lifetime. I started out as an architectural designer. So I designed houses, buildings, condos, duplexes, you name it, I designed those. That was what I call my first career. After that, I got into selling windows and doors for a major company called Pella. I did that nationally, so that was very good. But because I had a background in architecture, it led very well to getting into the windows and doors because you had to have a knowledge of construction. So that part really helped me out. So I did that for a number of years. I did it in Wisconsin, I did it in Palm Springs, and then I actually went back to Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and did back there some more. So I stayed with that company for quite a few years. After that, the experience I had in that business translated to the RV industry. And so for the last 20 plus years, I've been a manufacturer's rep for various RV manufacturers. Fleetwood, Forest River, a company in Riverside called MVP. That took me to Camping World. I was a general manager at a Camping World store up in Redding, California. You know, neither my wife or I really wanted to make Redding our full-time permanent home. You know, nothing against those in Redding, nothing against that area, but they told me when I went there, they said, you love it. It's got great hunting and fishing. And I said, well, I don't do either one. You know, I don't really hunt. If I want to fish, I go to the market and buy my salmon right there at the market. It's easier that way. So we stayed up there for about a year, and in doing that, we bought an RV because neither one of us wanted to put down full-time roots there. We figured this is a great way to do it. Buy your RV, stay there as long as you want. When you're done in Redding, we can move back down to Southern California, which we consider our home. So that's what got us into the RV lifestyle. And at that point, coming down here was a pretty easy transition. You just hook onto your truck, bring your home down, and you've moved your whole place. So it worked out pretty easy. You know, we stayed for a while in Hemet, decided Hemet wasn't the place we wanted to be. One day I Googled online and came up with this resort. Came here on a Saturday, and Sunday we rented a spot. So we absolutely fell in love with it. But that's kind of like how we ended up getting there and some of my background. We all kind of have ideas of what we'd like to try to get accomplished here. You know, we all have probably similar ideas. We want to make it a better place for all of us. And like Joe said, we're here working for the residents. So we're all in this together, and that's a key. But when I take a look at it, you know, I think our water wells are a key issue. You know, John had stated probably 2 or 3 meetings ago that we have 8 wells for irrigation. 4 of those are already dry. We need to find out exactly how much water we have left. How can we conserve water? A lot of cases that's going to mean going to desert landscapes in a lot of areas in order to conserve that water. I don't believe in waiting until we're down to 2 wells before we make those decisions. We need to get on it and do it quicker. You know, like Joe, I think the architectural guidelines need to be revised and changed and brought up to date. You know, last I heard, they still consider, in some places, the aluminum wood canopies awnings, which they consider made out of fabric. So a lot of things need to be addressed there and bring it up to date. I also think the website and social media needs to be addressed. We need, obviously, a better website to get that up going and have places on there for owners to put things for sale, along with, say, Facebook pages, so owners can see everything on there. So those are all things I believe we need to have, but the most important thing is I think we need to have openness among everybody. The decisions that the board makes in their meetings and the voting that they have, I think that should be public knowledge. You know, if I vote for something, you should know what I voted for. And I think that's pretty simple. So thank you very much.
I'm what? No? I'm Mike Brown. I've been here for a couple of days now. My wife Mary, that's behind me, front of me right here, but she's behind me. We've owned out here since 2003, so we've seen a lot of changes. We've been here for, retired now for about a year, going on a year and a half. So we've seen a lot of good things happen, we've seen a lot of bad things happen. Like Scott and Joe both said, we're running for the board because we want to see things improve. We want to be your voice after you say what we can do, what we think we can get accomplished here. I can repeat everything they've said, but they've already said it. Those are things that we all need to look for. We need to look for our water to make sure we're okay. We need to make sure that we have enough power to run this place, that every time we turn around, we're upgrading things. We have water issues, we have power issues, we have sometimes maintenance issues, but all those things are fixable, and we can make it all get better. My background is for 40 years. If I have a resume, I wouldn't even read it to you because I've been in the restaurant business for 40 years. I've been up as a regional vice president across the country. I've had 15 states. I've covered half of the United States at one time. My last job that I was with, I was in all of California, taking care of restaurants, fast food. I'm sorry, not fast foods, but coffee shops down here in Southern California. So I have a pretty good idea of what restaurants are, what building codes are, because we had to follow all of that stuff. We went from ground up to build things. I worked for travel centers, a truck stop company, so we dealt with intercommerce, we did with all kinds of stuff. But my whole goal is running for the board is to become part of a better team. We've had a board that's been in here that has done an excellent job getting us to the point we're at today. As bad as some of you may think they've run, I think they've really worked hard and done a great job to keep us running and keep us open. So with that, I'm going to turn my time over and I can give the rest of it to Suzanne. She says she needs about 9 minutes. I don't know if she can do it all. She's got 4 pages of notes. So I'm just winging it here, but I'm looking at her notes and I'm saying, oh my goodness, she needs it. But I'm here to represent all of us in here, not just me, but all of us in here. And if we can do that, we'll make this place a better place to be. Thank you.
Good morning. I know. I actually can do this. Good morning. My name is Suzanne Smack, and my husband Hilton. And I have lived here at the ranch for about 4 years. I'm afraid that if I don't read my notes, I'm going to forget something important, so here goes. My professional experience has been primarily in finance, and recently, my most recent position was with an international law firm where I was responsible for the collections of both domestic and international offices, as well as coordinating all of the various bankruptcy filings for the U.S. clients that the firm represented. I know that some of you look at me as someone who isn't very happy. I don't smile a lot. Unfortunately, that's the bane of my existence since childhood. For better or for worse, it's how I look. It's my face, it is what it is. But I wanted to just sort of allay your fears and let you know that I am eminently approachable, and I will speak with almost anyone, well, no, not almost, I will speak with anyone on almost any subject, ad infinitum. So now, that being said, let's get to the business at hand. We're on the threshold of owning and the disputed buildings and the surrounding lands that we would like to have for the ranch. And we're in a unique position in that we will have the ability to turn this resort into almost anything we can imagine. But, there have been many plans and have been proffered to the board for various improvements, all of which deserve consideration and prioritization. They're all meaningful and all have a place. My reason for running for the board primarily is this. I believe strongly that we as owners have a responsibility to take on the maintenance of this resort. It comes out of our dues, It has to be, these buildings have to be maintained properly, and those that we don't yet own will also have to be maintained. And it's a duty to all of us to take care of what we live in. It's our home. There are ample golfers, pickleballers, diners, swimmers, and tennis players to give input to the board about how their needs should be met. However, I feel that I speak for the rest of us who don't partake in any of those. You know, I'm sorry, I don't swim well. You know, I eat a lot. But it is simply that we call this ranch home. It's important to all of us. And remember that when we have something that is in ill repair, it comes out of our dues to make those repairs. So it also behooves all of us to take care of what we use. Don't go in and, you know, we can't just sort of let everything fall to rack and ruin. Many have voiced the need for a restaurant and a store, the final 4 holes of the golf course, a maintenance shed, as well as storage facilities for each unit, a gym, and a pool room. These are all very good points. But what is not being addressed is that there is serious maintenance needed to the facilities that we do own and that those we will presumably own in the near future. As an example, many of us use the small clubhouse a couple or 3 times a week. Any of you notice that the chair out on the front patio is, the webbing is coming away from the frame? How about the shutters on the kitchen enclosure? Oh my, is that me?
No, it's the time.
Oh dear, okay, well anyway, the kitchen enclosure's a mess and so on and so forth. The maintenance has to be done. The carpet's dreadful. And the roof leaks. So does the roof leak in here, by the way. Not anymore. They fixed it. Oh, good. Well, all right. But how's that for your first impression? I just want to say thank you. We're not shabby chic. We're shabby.
Hello everyone, I'm Ted Arnold. I'm running for the board. Sitting up front here is Janelle, my beautiful wife. You know, when we moved here three and a half years ago, we really fell in love with the place, like most of you did, right? You came here for a weekend probably and looked at the sunset and said, wow, I want to live here. And a little bit about myself. My wife and I are empty nesters, and we've had an opportunity to live this lifestyle earlier than most. And the reason that I'm running is not that I want to own anything or have power, but to really bring us together as a group. Now, let me tell you a little bit about how I think I can do that. I have over 30 years of software engineering experience. I have consulted with many Fortune 500 companies. I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in Computer Information Systems and an Associate of Arts degree in Financial Management. So I think I have a good depth and breadth of experience to not only help draw out what you guys want, but to Suzanne's point, let's prioritize it. Let's figure out, you know, what we can do and what we can't do. Regards to the website, excellent point. We spent a lot of good money on the website, but we don't do anything to make it really work for us. And I think one of the things that we really need to do, actually there's a couple of things. First of all, I think that we need to do surveys. I think we need to know what you guys do, right? The second point I think we need to do is we need to do a customer service survey against all the different areas, facilities, golf, front office, and then have an action plan on how we're going to improve that. Let's try and do what we can to make the place better. And I think that's something that we can do independent of any bankruptcy proceedings, right? Let's see what else. One more thing. I think we need more committees. You know, we have the golf committee, we have the activities committee, but if you go over to jojoba, they have like a list of them. And I think that that's important because I think we need to give people more opportunities within the park to become part of the park. It's not these people against those people, right? It's us. And I think if we can develop a shared vision, and if we can have a good way to prioritize what we need, we'll all be pulling together as opposed to pulling apart. So, thank you.
Thank you for your introductions. They were great. I think everybody got a better sense of what each of our candidates are for. And having been on the board, I'm looking forward to the election and a fine array of people running. It's wonderful. Going to the questions, and I'm putting two of them together, but I'm going to read them both at the same time so you both know. And I think it is just, given 2 minutes or less, a reiteration of what each of you just said about what you have your vision. The first question is, what are your top 3 priorities for the ranch in the next 3 years, post-BK and post-CD? Financial priorities, expansion priorities, cafe and market. The second question is very similar, but a little bit different. Most people have different versions of what the resort should be. What is your version, and how do you plan to bring everyone in agreement? Example, extra golf holes versus refinishing the tennis courts. Mike, do you want to start that?
Gene?
Yep.
Okay. The 3-year vision that I have just looking at this is the restaurant is very important, the store is very important, and the golf is very important. However, I don't believe that we need to spend very, very large sums of money to work on the golf course right now. We have 14 holes that are in very good shape that everybody can play when they want to play it. We really upgraded them. We have great tees, we have great greens. We've done some great work on holes 6 and 7 so they look good. But I believe that we need to come in and work on what we can do inside the park with the restaurant to get people to come back in here to eat. Because right now we're supporting Stagecoach across the street, as all of you know. And it's not just a once-a-week thing. It's 3-4 days a week that people are there. If you want to go to the store, you've got to drive all the way into town or across the street. And the guy across the street is good. However, he charges you 3-4 times the amount of money for some of the stuff that you can get in town. You know, it's cheaper to drive into town. But I believe we need to come out and evaluate what we have in here now. Look at everything we're doing today. And continue to help us to grow everything we've done today. The architectural committee needs to get up to speed on what we're doing. The activities director, activities committee needs to get up to. All these things work as a team, so we can put everybody in here that works as one big family. And that's what we are in here. We are a family, and we're trying to make this better for everybody. So we need to look at, after the bankruptcy closes, and this is ours, we need to evaluate the properties on the outside that we can or cannot use, and decide what we're going to do to get rid of those or make those work. And then work on the inside of the properties to make it more convenient for all of us in here, for the restaurant, for the store, and then look at things like the golf course. You know, we have pickleball people in here that want to play pickleball, we have courts that are not right. If you haven't noticed, the pickleball people are moving up to Jojoba.
Mike, time.
I'm going to use her time. Okay, anyway, thank you.
Remember, 2 minutes or less. Scott, go ahead.
Oh, wait a second. Gotcha.
Great. Okay, very good. All right, so the top 3-year vision, well, even number 1, I mean, as soon as we get the bankruptcy and the trustee sale all completed, I think the number 1 thing we need to do is try to get the restaurant done. It's going to be such an addition to the resort as a whole. I think it's probably the nicest thing we're going to be able to have as far as offer new people coming in, and it's going to help all of our property values at the same time. Number 2, I think the water issues we have with the dry wells, I think that's a key that needs to be addressed. And once again, as I said before, the sooner the better on those issues. We don't want to be waiting around until we're out of water to figure out what we're going to do and start digging deeper wells at that point. It's going to be too late in a lot of cases. And once again, no water at this resort means our property values plummet without water, so that's a key. Number 3, the architectural guidelines. I'm in agreement with most everybody here that those need to be revised, updated, and revised continually. Every year, every 2 years, they need to be readdressed, relooked at, because things change over times. 1 year you can only have palapas, and years later you can't have palapas. But the guidelines need to be continually changing along with those also. My vision for the resort is to have a great, happy resort, a golf resort. I think with all the holes we have out here, it's a key to have the golf. The extra 4 holes, I like to have the 4 holes, but I think we have to get some of the other issues addressed before we go and do the other 4 holes, and get those resolved before we move on. And because we do the other 4 holes, we're going to have extra lots on those also. If you're looking at an extra 100, 150 lots, that's more water usage, and that's going to be a concern, unless we have our water, all our issues solved at that point. But there's a lot of things we can do. But I envision this to be a great resort, great place for people to come golf, and hopefully all of our property values will rise at the same time. So that's all I have to say on that.
Joe? Okay, what a lot of people said here, I certainly am in agreement with all of these kind of things. Our priorities are number one, we're going to get some new property, approximately 800 acres, if I'm not mistaken, new property. What are we going to do with that new property? How are we going to manage that? Can you hear me now?
Just speak up.
Okay, better? Okay, as I said, we have the 800 acres or so that we're getting of the new property. We have to determine a plan. We have to put together a plan as to what we're going to do with that new property. We have to do another thing that nobody mentioned here is that we have CC&Rs. These CC&Rs have to be rewritten. Let me tell you something. They are nowhere near what we're doing. You want to know something right now? What you're all going to have to do in accordance with the CC&Rs? How many people have build-outs here? Okay, you got to take them all down. Sorry. You got to take them all down because the CC&Rs say you can't have them. All right? So we talk about architectural guidelines. How can we have architectural guidelines on something you can't have in the first place? Okay, so these are some of the things we have to address. We have to address these CC&Rs. We have to address the architectural guidelines. My vision of having this thing is to, number one, what I would like to see happen to this board, whether I'm elected or not having this board, is that we have approximately 600 lots out here, 592 to be exact. All right. That's about 120 lots per board member. Okay? I would like to see each board member have 120 lots or so, and they go out and meet the people and find out what we want to put together in this particular facility here. What is your vision of what the facility is? Because our vision has got to be what your vision is of this facility, not just our vision of the facility. We've got to know what you want to know. And the only way we can get to know what you want to know is to get out there and meet you. How many board members have met you and gone out to your lot and met you and asked what you want in this facility? Not many. And that's what I want to do.
I have to admit that I agree with all of the prioritizations that have been listed, with one exception. We don't own a lot of the properties yet. And we have a very short time in which to do the maintenance for the existing properties that we utilize, i.e. the small clubhouse first, because with the exception of the airspace in the office, we own that building. But the biggest issue is that we have a maintenance crew that is that's only available during the winter months when they're not devoting their time to mowing. So if we're going to maintain what we have already, we have to utilize our personnel to maintain that when they have the time to do it. If we wait to start maintaining the stuff in the spring, it'll never happen because of the mowing and keeping the golf course in tip-top shape. It is imperative that before we start with new construction, we bring up to code and to proper working condition everything that we currently have in the park.
And last but not least,
Oh, wait a second. What are you? Blue. Okay. Gotcha.
Okay. I think one of the most important things we need to do is to do a survey. I think we can do that right now. We don't have to wait for the end of the bankruptcy. And I think it's going to take some time to figure out what people want. So I like the idea of what Joe said about having, wardens, or no, but yeah. But I also think that we need to do it in some kind of a scientific way. And so, once we have the list of things, then we can go about the idea of prioritizing them. Part of that prioritization is the cost. Part of that prioritization is, can it be done post or before bankruptcy, so that we have a good idea. Another thing I think we need to do is we need to figure out how to spend our budget dollars better. And what I mean is, when you see that balance sheet, it doesn't tell me jack. I can look at it and, just a bunch of dollars. What I would like to see is a budget, right? And I would like to see us spend against that budget. And I would like to compare that with what happened last year, what's going to happen next year. I'd also like to have it by department. How much do we spend on the golf course on a month? Anybody know? No, nobody knows. And so we're talking about expanding it. We don't even know how much it costs, right? How much does it cost to run this thing? How much does it cost to run the front office? Those types of things. I'm not trying to reach into the accounting system, but I think that we all, as owners, need to understand how the dollars are being spent and what we can do in the future.
Thank you. The next two questions also have been addressed earlier, but they're two questions that relate to the drought. One of them says, today's paper had an article about drought conditions. What should we be doing to save our water? The next question is, what would you do about the water situation with 4 wells dry? Scott, why don't you start this one?
Ready? Okay, first of all, during one of our recent meetings, it was explained to us, obviously, that 4 of the 8 wells were dry. And when the question came up, how much water do we have left, there was no definitive answer to what we have left for water. I think the first thing we need to do there is, obviously, somebody in the industry, somebody in that field, should be able to tell us what we have for water. I know when farmers are out there and they've got wells to, supply their crops with water, they have an idea of how much water they have left. They don't wait until the wells go dry and then decide, okay, well, now it's time to go drill another well. So there should be some way that we can figure that out. There's a well company down in Anza. I'm sure we could probably have them come up and they could probably tell us how much water we have in our wells. But I think that's something we need to try to figure out first. How much water do we have? Secondly, I see that the drought's probably going to continue in the state of California. I don't think there's any signs that have that let up. I think as far as what we can do internally to compensate for that, to make it easier for us, is to go to more desert landscape. Desert landscaping would be doing away with some of the grass, the edges of the fairways, but golf courses will still be green, probably better than they currently would be if we went to desert. Because if you take the areas that you don't really need, you don't plan on, and make those in the desert, and still have nice landscaping, bougainvilleas, maybe cactus, and do different things to make it have the color, that would certainly save a lot of water. I think we could probably save 25% of our water just by going to a different landscape. And possibly helping homeowners, if they want to do away with the grass that they have, bring in the HOA team, the workers we have, the maintenance people, let them take out the grass and make it easier. We can help them out in some way to make it more of a desert landscape. And ultimately, it's going to help us out in the long run, use less water. Okay?
Ready?
Yep.
Okay, number one, I have a desert landscape on a particular lot. I have a drip system on my lot, okay? I put that in there. These are some of the things that I think we're all going to have to sacrifice to do to save water. You're going to have to do more of this desert landscaping to save the water. And another thing we might want to do is this. As an aggregate, we have a lot of money that we can each spend, or all of us spend, on putting in artificial. If you want green, you can put in an artificial lawn, by the way. There's not that much green that you have on your particular lots, by the way. So putting in we could maybe band together, get a company out here and say, okay, we can do X number of dollars per lot to put in the artificial greens, what do they call it, turf, artificial turf that they have out there. And that doesn't require any watering, by the way, zero watering as far as that's concerned. So going to that type of watering is something we're going to have to do, unfortunately, because of where we live. We love California. We love where we live, but we ain't got no water. And and it's going to be tough. So everything that we can do to conserve the water, I see every day a whole lot of water going down the streets. Don't we all see that? Okay, that's not doing any good at all, going down the streets, by the way. And so we've got to get rid of that water going down the streets. And the way to do it, number one, put in drip systems. I've done that already. Or put in artificial turf. And maybe we could band together and go to a company and get one heck of a good price of getting artificial turf, which looks exactly like grass. And there are some lots that have artificial turf on here already. And it looks very nice. And it doesn't require any water. So that's part of my solution to the water problem.
That was one of the things that I was going to suggest was artificial turf. Thank you, Joe, because I agree. I think that rather than a desert landscape, many of us live here because it isn't brown, it's not sand. We really wanted to live in an oasis. At least the artificial turf gives us the appearance of living in an oasis without the drain on our water resources. But I also think that Joe's belief about choosing a company, I think we should work in concert with the golf course committee, or Amley in particular. He has access to the best possible types of astroturf or artificial turf available, and he has probably got a contact where we could get a really good price per lot. Thank you.
Well, something like this, going fifth is not an advantage.
Actually, you're fourth.
Fourth. Okay, I'm sorry. One more chance. I agree with what Scott said. I think we need to figure out what our usage is and what we have, left. And I think that based on that, we can make some decisions, right? You hear, gosh, we're running out of water. Well, what does that mean, right? Does that mean that we're using 800 and we can only use 600? I mean, until we actually know those metrics, it's kind of hard to figure out what is a good plan. It's probably all of the above, but we need some hard metrics to figure that out.
Everybody has already said it. However, if you look around, there's 1,000 sets of eyes in here. And as Joe says earlier, you look at the water running down the streets. How many of you have seen sprinklers broken, shooting straight up in the air, watering the parking lots or the streets, and never done anything about it, never called anybody? It's our responsibility. If you see it happen, we have to go tell somebody. And to call somebody today and say, hey, that was running, and then tomorrow you go out and see it's still there, that's an issue. That has to be happening immediately. And the association, our maintenance people, there's only a handful, there's only like 20 people, but they need to know right away if you've got a broken sprinkler someplace that's not working and that's shooting out in the street, we need to get that taken care of right away. Yeah, that's non-potable water. However, that's water that can be used for something in the park here. And as Scott has said, 4 out of 8 wells that might be dry. Eventually we're going to get a storm out here that's going to fill these wells up. I mean, 40 days and 40 nights, that's not too far away. It's coming. But we all need to do our part to make sure that we're looking at all this. And when we see water running down the streets, we need to speak up. If we can't get a hold of maintenance, go to the front office, let somebody up there know, because they will get a hold of somebody, because that's on their minds as well. It should be on all of our minds.
Great, and thank you, and just as an aside, I really hope everybody does follow up on that, because our maintenance crew will take care of things, but only if they're aware of it. Instead of asking each of you to speak, from now on, I'm just going to say, if you raise your hands, you can speak, and if you don't have any further comment, so I'm not going to put you on the spot of just saying ditto. Does that make sense, everyone? Okay, the next couple of questions are pretty specific. The first one is, how would you deal with a homeowner who has more animals on their lot than the CC&Rs allow? Anyone want to comment on that? Suzanne?
I don't think we are in a position to suggest to a homeowner who currently has 4 cats and 3 dogs that they have to get rid of all but 2 animals. However, I do think we have the obligation and the ability to suggest that by attrition, as they are precluded from replacing those animals down to 2.
Joe?
Well, one of the things I noticed that people that rent here, people that buy new lots here, they don't know the rules and regulations. A lot of people may come in here and have animals in their RV, they rent a lot, and they've got 3 cats or 3 dogs or something of that nature, and they just don't know the rules. We've got to do a better job of making sure that new homeowners know the rules here that we have, and that renters know the rules that are here. I don't think we do a good job of informing the renters of the rules that exist in this particular unit, because everybody's rented this. It's not rented through ORA anymore. Okay, it's rented by each individual lot owner rents his own particular lot to whoever they rent it for. But there's got to be some way that we have to put together to know that every renter knows all the rules of this particular golf course and adheres to it.
Anyone else want to comment? Scott?
What Joe was saying is certainly correct, and I want to say ditto to that. But one way of handling that is when somebody's purchasing a lot, if they're buying it from a realtor or owner, to have the disclosure statement where it states that you can only have so many animals on your lot. Because like Joe said, if they don't have that, how do they know? And then all of a sudden they buy their lot, and we go and tell them later on you can only have 2 animals. So it has to be done on the front end before they actually get to that stage as far as going through and finalizing the deal on purchasing a lot. The same thing's true when you buy a house out there in the marketplace. When you're buying a house, you've signed a disclosure, you understand all the commitments prior to buying your lot for your house. So I think that would probably help solve that issue.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay. I know each of you have addressed this, and I know it was near and dear to my heart last year too, and it still is. Question is, how do you feel about bringing the rules, etc., into the 21st century? Does everybody just say we want to and just leave it at that? Anyone have any specific answer they'd like to make? Joe? Joe, wait till he puts you on.
You know, I did a lot of research on Title 25, and a lot of people think that I said that we don't want Title 25 in this particular resort. That's not true. That's not what I said at all in that place. I just said we don't have the resources to interpret Title 25. That's what I said. We are required to do Title 25. We are required to do rules and regulations. There's a Davis-Sterling Act that is here that requires rules and regulations of associations and so on that we have to abide by. Bringing our rules up to what you would call 20th century is this. If you look around at the buildings over here, when I came here, the only thing you put up was a palapa or a canvas cover. That's all you could put up, okay? Then the fire marshal came along and said, wow, what are you doing here? This is against the fire rules to have a palapa here. Okay, so then all of a sudden that came to a screeching halt, and we started doing other types of construction out here. None of us was all really addressed in any way that I can see in a manner in which, what do the people want out here? What kind of buildings do they want out here? And these change all the time. It changed from when I came here. Like I said, the palapa, then we went to hard structures, we went to pluma wood structures, we went to different kinds of structures here. We have to determine what are these rules and where do we have these numbers that come up, 20%, 5%, 6%. Where do all these numbers come from? We don't know. No one knows where these numbers came from. So we have to bring this and we have to analyze all of this and come up with stuff that we can live with, because there's a whole lot of stuff that are not in compliance out here with the CC&Rs. They're not in compliance with the architectural guidelines, but they've been put in. And now we're saying, oh, we got to comply. Well, wait a minute. We haven't complied with these for years. Now we got to comply all of a sudden. We got to put together something that says, hey, what do the people want? That's what I want to put together. Okay?
Thank you, Joe. Ed?
Oh, there we go.
The only thing that I would add to that is that there has been so many exceptions that we need to do 2 things. We need to see, what is the maximum build out that we can have by law, and that is what we need to go by, not some silly rule, right? It needs to be something that we can all live with, and honestly, there are some great build outs out there that raise everybody's property value.
Anyone else on that question? No? Okay, well, they're very similar ones, so if you haven't commented, you can comment on this one. To all the candidates, if the county inspector approves the plans and subsequent inspections, will you agree? At least until the new CCNRs are voted on and approved by the owners. I'm presuming that means if somebody's doing a build out, so. Okay, Ted?
Yeah, I think that that's spot on, honestly. You know, if we can use the county regulations as opposed to our own, you know, that gets us out of that regulation business, right? And I don't think anybody wants to do that. You know, people have worked extremely hard on these CCNRs, and they have, you know, spent countless a number of times, and they've been ridiculed, and you know, honestly, the fewer regulations that we have, and somebody else that actually does that for a living to enforce them, we're in a much better position than trying to do it ourselves.
Yeah, okay. We have what you would call a standard lot. Okay, standard lot is 40 by 80. All right, that's 3,200 square feet. 20% of that, is the way the guidelines are written right now, is 640 square feet, right? All right. Well, where did the 20% come from? Well, I don't know exactly where it came from, but I did a lot of mathematics associated with that. You're required in a 40 by 80 lot, you're required 15 feet in front of the lot that you can't build on, correct? You're allowed 3 feet on one side, 5 feet on the other side. You add that all up. In Title 25, it says that the hardscape can be up to 75% of your lot. Hardscape meaning concrete. The other 25% has to be in softscape, okay, which is dirt or lawn, things of that nature, okay. When you put all these things together and you look at the standard lot, you can actually go to about 730 square feet. That's a lot more than 640 square feet, okay? So if you put all that stuff together, why are we limiting this? And I'm in absolute favor. There's a lot of lots here that don't comply with the architectural guidelines as they are written today, and yet they're approved by the county. And they're there. They're out there right now. It's not a matter of them being built. They're there. And they're gorgeous, right? What's the problem with it, okay? So that's my thoughts on that whole stuff.
Thank you, Joe. Suzanne?
I think if we as a whole can agree that, as you say, the county is the deciding factor. The only issue with that in my mind, and I may be wrong about this, but doesn't the county sort of change their mind on things fairly regularly? Okay, well, okay, not recent, but the point is that once we have decided on that we're going to accept the county as it is, that's wonderful, but we have to check with them on a monthly basis to be sure that they haven't changed. But I agree, I think we have to have a governing board outside of the association to determine the guidelines as a whole.
Thank you. Mike, I think you had your hand up first. Did you want to speak? No, that's okay.
Is he ready?
Yep.
Yeah, I believe everybody here is on the same track. If the county has approved it, we should be able to go with that. I need to tell you that the architectural committee that we have here today, you know, some of them have taken a real beating for this because their interpretation of what the CCNRs are or what the guidelines are and what the county's interpretation are we're on two different pages. If we have the county coming in saying you can do this and this and this, and once they assign it or they approve it, it should be a done deal. When the architectural committee comes in after the fact, they want to make sure that we have brought everything else up to the standard of what we said we were going to do. Sprinkler systems are in correctly, so we're watering like we're supposed to. We're not having, you know, water running all over. Our plumbing systems are correct. The guidelines are so far off the boundaries. But I believe that everybody here is in agreement that if the county says it's an approval, the architectural committee should say, yeah, we can go with that, and just make sure that we did what we said we were going to do and nothing more than that. And when Suzanne says that we need to have an outside committee, I don't believe we need an outside committee. We have all that. The contractors that we have, they should be up to date with all the information. They should know. They're the representative that goes to the county to say, here's what we've got. They have an architectural company that does all this. So that's what we should be looking at.
Joe,
One
Joe,
problem.
Joe, excuse me.
One problem.
Joe, Scott is ahead of you. Thank you.
I just wanted to go on record and say that I'm 100% approval of the county doing the inspections. I think as long as we can get the HOA department out of doing the inspections and leaving it up to the county, they're the ones that are trained to do the inspections. When you're doing footings, framing, and everything else, we're not trained, we're not licensed, we've never been bonded as far as the information, as far as what's right, what's wrong. That should be the county's responsibility to do all that determination. And when you do your set of plans, whether it's a homeowner taking their plans in or a contractor taking their plans in, you take them into the county looks at those plans, they say yes or no, that should be good to go. At that point, I think, we need to make sure what color somebody's going to paint their stucco or something like that, but as far as the actual construction, I think those requirements should be set by the county.
We have one problem with that.
Mr. Crispino, you've used your 2 minutes. for
Okay,
this
but
question.
can I just say one thing?
No. And I'll use that rule for everybody. We're not going to have a rebuttal. We're just going to answer in 2 minutes your feelings on these questions. This question bothers me, but I said I'd ask everyone. This one is specifically for Suzanne. As a board member, it is vital that your representation and voting stand for what you perceive to be in the best interests of the majority of the 592 owners, therefore shunning a personal agenda on your own. Is it true that you do, in fact, have a personal agenda to eliminate the Rancho, California Chapel's use of the HOA facilities?
Wow, I don't know where that came from, but I have no will or inclination to eliminate the chapel's use of any of the HOA facilities. I've never proffered that agenda, nor have I ever suggested it. I don't have any heartburn with the chapel. Just because I do not attend does not mean that they're not entitled to the same usage that the rest of us have. I'm flabbergasted that someone would even suggest that.
Okay, thank you. The next question also relates to the use of our facilities, so I think it follows. Please express your viewpoint and objective with respect to using the main clubhouse by all the owners on a daily basis. I presume that means after we own the main clubhouse. Okay, Ted.
I think it's a great idea, honestly. I envision having the coffee back there and some tables that people could come in and chat and maybe watch some TV. I think it's a great use of this facility. So yeah, I would encourage that. But again, like everything else that we have to deal with on a daily basis, we have to wait till the bankruptcy is complete before we can get complete usage of all the facilities.
Thank you. Suzanne?
I think that that's a great idea as well. I think Ted pretty much said everything that needs to be said, except that following a schedule is a little difficult. When we have people who, for instance, there is going to be a cabaret show at the end of the month, we have people who are using the chapel for rehearsals for their Sunday services, as well as people who are trying to rehearse for their presentation. The difficulty is finding the appropriate venue to create a schedule that works for everyone.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, great. This goes back to, this is one that was just handed to me, but if you do a survey of what the ranch wants us to look like we've talked about, but the county says it can look like something different, which would we follow? Okay.
Well, unfortunately, we'd have to follow the county, right? Because we can't fall outside of the law. But I think that in terms of what a survey would do is it would help us prioritize what we already know, right? For instance, would we rather put weightlifting equipment in the large clubhouse, or would we rather, put fish in the fish pond, right? I mean, it's those kinds of things that we have the ability to change anyway. I don't think anybody would be wanting to do something outside of that.
Okay, thank you.
Can I clarify my question?
Certainly.
When I'm saying we do a survey of what we want it to say, for example, if we choose to have palopolis, or if we choose to have buildings, and they're within the scope of what's allowed by the county, but then the county says, like, say we want to do something that's small, and the county says, oh, you can go big, all right? So the small is within the scope of the county. But who are you going to follow? What the park wants, that's legal as far as the county's concerned, or what the county says we can do? That's what I'm asking.
And let me clarify that, because I understand what you're asking, is the county tells you 75% occupied. And let's say as a whole that we decide we want to have less than 75. We can always be stricter than the county. We can't be less strict than the county. So what they're saying is, do we...
Well, the other thing too is the county dictates architecturally what we can do, as far as the codes and all that kind of stuff. They don't dictate what it looks like.
Correct. Okay, and we have to stop the clarifications because nobody else had an opportunity to clarify. So I guess the question is, if the county says one thing and the owners themselves say something else, what do you want to have happen? Because we've said that we want the county to be the dictator of the build-outs.
Well, I think we're going to run into I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit here, but I suspect that if the county is the governing factor, and we as a whole of the homeowners, let's say 51% say we want a space 40 by 40 that we utilize for whatever. But there are 49 who want it to be 62% of whatever. That's a fine line. And I think that as long as it's within the guidelines of the county and within reason of what is the overall request of the owners, if we can stay within that, that's fine. I think that it's going to be a case-by-case basis. I think it will also depend on what what your immediate neighbors say about what you want to do, and maybe that's the way to go. Well, but by the same token, when I'm speaking about, please let me finish. If I'm speaking about immediate neighbors, I'm not suggesting that they can dictate to you what color your lot is or the size of it. What I'm suggesting is that if, it's like when you live in a community and you build a 2-story something, just because the county says it's okay, that may not work in our environment. And we have to take it all on a case-by-case basis. Getting approval from your neighbors, if you're living in an environment like this as closely as we all do, it would seem to me it would be in all of our best interest to at least attempt to compromise with our neighbors.
Okay, Mike, did you have something?
Gene? Okay, got it. Suzanne hit it right on the nose. But as a community, we need to make sure that we follow the guidelines of the county and we follow the guidelines of what we want here as a resort. The CCNRs, the Architectural Committee, that was all put together to keep this so we don't have people building 2-story homes. We have people doing things that are kept within the guidelines that we set for them. We can sit here and argue the point, and if I want to go to Scott and say, Scott, I'm building right next door to you, but I'm going to build a chicken coop out back. He may say, great idea, but the guy next to it says, this is not a farming community. We may be stuck with something like that. So we have to argue that point. However, if the county comes in and says, you're allowed to go 100%, that's the county saying that. That's not us as a resort or the homeowners in here. We need to make sure that we stay within the guidelines and make sure that we keep this place looking like it does today. I don't think anybody here has done anything out of the ordinary, and everything here is just driving our prices straight up. So, thank you.
We've been at it about an hour. There's 3 questions left, and then their closing remarks. Do you all want to take a quick break, or do you want to keep going?
Keep going.
Keep going? Okay. So anyone needs to take a quick break, just sneak out. Okay. There's 2 questions, both similar to each other, so I'm going to read them both again. One of them says, how do you feel about complete transparency? And the next question is, how do you feel about town hall meetings with open and transparent discussions on expenditures? So one is complete and one only talks about the money. Anyone? Joe?
Well, number one, I think there should be complete transparency in everything we do as far as the law requires, okay? When I say that there's maybe certain things that cannot be completely transparent, like during the course of the bankruptcy and the lawsuits and so on, the board had to keep certain things secret because the lawyers said that they had to keep certain things secret. They could not divulge it to everybody because then it had to be divulged to the people we're trying to sue. So we had to keep it, the board had to keep it secret among themselves and not give the information out to the people. A lot of people complained about that, but I could understand why that was done, okay? And the advice of the lawyers is not to do that. If things come up like that, I can understand that not complete transparency. But one of the things that I feel that, and I think that there's been a lot of complaints about the fact that the rumor mill that is established right here in this facility. Oh, everybody's rumors. It's rumors all over the place. But rumors start from lack of information. That's how rumors start. But if you have enough information, the rumors go down a heck of a lot. So I would like to go as much as possible to inform everybody out here of everything that's going on in this facility as much as we possibly can, and that, I think, would stop a lot of the rumors that go around in this facility.
Scott?
Yes, in addition to what Joe was saying, part of the transparency is also how does everybody vote on the board? You know, how do we vote? What do we each vote for? What are we basically voting against? Because when you're looking at a board member, we're not all 100% agreement on everything. We all have our specific views. So when it comes to the next time there's an election, you'd all like to know why this person stands on the different issues that come up. So that's part of the transparency, I think, is a very important thing to have. So that there's nothing hidden. We're all part of this. We all own in here. So we're all members, we're all owners. We should all have rights to know every information there is out here. And that's how I look at that. Town hall meetings are great because they can get the information from the people. It's more of a information sharing to see what direction we should go. You might have a town hall meeting on a specific subject to find out what are the desires of everybody as a community and what direction you want to go with it. So that's how I feel.
Thank you, Scott. Ted?
Yes, as I had said before, one of the things I think we need to do is work on putting together a budget by different functions within the park. And then, so if, let's say that the golf course takes $500,000 a year to run. On at least a quarterly basis, you ought to see, we had $1 million budgeted, we spent $250,000, and we have these things that are going to be spent going forward. At least you have some, context about how your money's being spent and where it's being spent. Right now, like I said, you get the balance sheet, big glob of numbers, put you to sleep, right? At least that gives you some information about how things are being done. Now, and also, one other thing. I believe that previous boards, because of the bankruptcy and because of the construction defect lawsuit, there was, they developed a philosophy of trying to withhold information. And I don't think that it was, I don't think that it was malicious. I think it was just something that just happened. And over time, I believe that drove a wedge between people up here and people out there. And I think we need to figure out how to get past that.
Anyone else want to make a comment on the transparency issue? Okay, great. We have one more question, and I think it kind of segues into your closing remarks. But I'll let you either answer it. I'm going to use my discretion. I'm going to let you either answer it in your 2-minute answer to a question or as part of your closing remarks, and it's going to be your option. Okay. The question is, what makes you qualified to sit on the board, given all the complexities of the problems with the ownership of the properties? And you all can have a moment to think about it. It's a pretty serious question. Anyone? Ted, you want to start?
I'll use it with my closing remarks. Okay. I have 40 years of professional experience doing budgeting for billion-dollar companies. I have, like I said, consulted with different industries, including telecommunications, construction, in different industries within inside of IT. I've also ran a small business. I've made payroll with that small business. I did the accounting for that business. I understand IT. I understand how to connect people with IT. And I think, given where we're at in this time in history, that is incredibly important. And I think that I have the ability to translate really hard and technical things into things that people can understand. And I think that's a gift that I have, and I'd like to use it for the betterment of this place.
Can we just run down this way? Is that agreeable with all of you? Okay, Suzanne? Wait a minute, Suzanne.
Wait a second, sorry. Got it.
Okay. In my former life, I sat as a secretary on the board of directors for a condominium complex for 3 years. I have my professional expertise as I have worked in the accounting and credit and finance departments of several Fortune 500 companies, including Hewlett-Packard, Universal Studios, and others. My background is finance. I work with generally accepted accounting principles, and I believe strongly that transparency, as we were speaking of earlier, is extremely important. We need to be able to account for every penny we spend. We need to be able to offset our expenses with our revenue so that we know what the net is. I believe, just as a side note, I spent from September until nearly New Year's creating a spreadsheet of every cent spent by the activities committee and every penny brought in, and submitted that to the board. It was not only a year-to-date analysis, it was a monthly analysis, and within that monthly analysis was also the event analysis. So I'm familiar with working with budgets and can work within a budget, and have also had wonderful experiences working with the group here and know what to present to an auditor. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Joe, is this for your closing remarks? I think everybody's doing closing.
Same thing, right. Well, I've run 2 major divisions of major corporations. I was vice president, general manager of Anaconda Electronics Corporation. I took the corporation from about $2 million worth of business to over $70 million worth of business. So I expanded the corporation. Of course, you have to have budgets. You have to report on the budgets. You have to have expenditures and so on, and keep them in hand. I was the most profitable division in the Anaconda Corporation. I also then ran the general manager of Pacific Telephone Communications Division. It's a $300 million division. I did, of course, all of the budgeting and so on, and ran the division. I had over 1,000 employees working in that division. We did a lot of work and a lot of construction work, by the way, not just in communications. We actually did construction work. We did all the construction work for UCLA, for Northrop Corporation, for the McDonnell Douglas Corporation, construction work, and then putting in all of these communication systems, including bulldozer work and everything else associated with that. So I've been involved in all of that stuff all my years. I'm 80 years old. I'm not young, okay? I retired at age 55. I've been on the board of directors of 3 different corporations, okay? So I know what being on the board of directors is also. And I've done a lot of work here in the resort itself. So that's my background. Thank you very much.
I have, I guess, probably 3 things that really would help my qualifications here. Number 1 is I've been in sales almost my entire life, and being that's the case, in sales you have to be able to listen to your customer and find out exactly what their needs are. You just don't want to sell people whatever you feel like selling them. Selling product is finding their needs, their desires, and fulfilling that. And because of that, you become a good listener. And you have to be able to know what everybody wants. And you don't do that by talking, you do that by listening and finding out what the needs are. The next thing I think really works well is common sense and logic. Pretty simple. But if you don't have those, you're not going to get it really achieved. You'll have to look at everything logically, see what makes sense, and go down that path. And that's all I got to That's how I look at it.
They said it all. It's for 40 years in the restaurant business, everybody thinks, well, you know, you were just a fry cook or something like this. However, I gotta tell you, I started off as an assistant manager, learning from Del Taco when I started off. Went up to becoming a regional vice president, director of operations, 15 of the western states. We had malls, we had food courts, we had maintenance departments, we had, you name it, we took care of everything. We've taken restaurants I built from the ground up, been involved with from the ground up, complete P&L responsibility. So when we talk about budgets, we have to create a budget, follow the budget, and then explain why we did the budget. The last company I was with for 6.5 years, we were owned by Japanese, and I had to go to meetings every single month and report on the board of directors. We were there with them and explain exactly where we came, why we didn't spend the money, why we did spend the money, how we built it, how we got the labor put together, how we got the food, how we got everything. A lot of that stuff, it's food. However, this is a business just like the restaurant business is. We can run it exactly like that, and then put together the budget, and then the transparencies that you want to see. The lawyers have certain things to talk about. Our board did a great job communicating stuff to us about the bankruptcy. However, there were certain things they could not tell us, and people tried to beat up on them and everybody else in here. They talked to each other about how good or bad it was. But I think there's a lot of budget experience that I have that I can bring to help this park out as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Every single question that I was given was addressed, and I appreciate that. Thank you all for your listening and your, I guess when I ran for the board last year, one of the things I said, and I think Rich Jones also said, is please, when you vote, don't vote because you like this person or want to have a glass of wine or are your neighbor. Please vote for what you think is the best person to represent us. We have wonderful candidates here. I know I certainly enjoyed listening to their views because I really hadn't chatted with them very much about what their vision was. We're going to have another Meet the Candidates meeting on the 21st at 10 a.m. And you're welcome to come, but please, if you know somebody who hasn't come, please tell them that it's important for them to participate and listen and see what our candidates want to do. I think this has been videotaped, so
Yes.
It will be available in a couple of days?
As soon as possible.
As soon as possible, okay. That's tonight?
No.
Okay. Anyway, thank you all for your attention and have a good day. Bye-bye.